Hello, this is Dr. Paul Mayoni, and I'm doing a unit summary this week by video. As you can see, Capella had a faculty training for the last 3 days. So, the good thing was they brought it here to Fort Lauderdale, where I live, and they flew faculty in from around the country. Basically, the training was about a little bit more of this technology, Adobe Connect, and creating videos. But first and foremost, it was about the new residency curriculum, which you will be attending if you haven't already. And so we meet from time to time and we go over what we do at your residency 1 and 2. So interesting timing that they scheduled it for the first quarter of the semester. So I thought I'll be experimenting with some different ways of interacting with you in the course room other than the usual ways. And this seemed like a good week to do that. So, Unit 1. In terms of identifying strengths, I enjoyed reading your postings on the movie and the characters this week. And as you can tell, it's a very different way to orient yourself when you're looking at strengths, especially in a clinical context. Um, Too often in the mental health world, we are organized by the medical model, which is as experts, we want to diagnose and fix. And it's very immersed in our culture, this idea that when people are coming to therapy for help, that we are going to look at what's not working and offer some input about how to correct things. And if we deconstruct that a bit and we think about some other ways of interacting with people, um, we realize that by punctuating strengths, by punctuating resources, by looking at what's working, we actually contribute to things working even more. And so, what you focus on in therapy is oftentimes just limited by focusing on pathology, what we see not working. We're really doing an injustice to our clients by not being very quick to look at strengths and resources. And this is a skill because you can look at strengths in a very superficial way, or you can look at better at this as time goes on. So I think an exercise like this is great in terms of identifying strengths. One that you might not see, for example, I can envision telling a client who is reporting a lot of depressive symptoms and nothing right in their life, a lot of doom and gloom. Even a question like, so how did you even make it out of bed to come to the session today? Is a way of identifying a strength. And so that's one of the more subtle ways, um, in addition to the more obvious ways, like this couple gets along good when it comes to raising their 10-year-old, or this couple issues. Those are the more blatant ways of identifying strengths. But again, the more people that you see, the more clients you see, you get better at identifying the more subtle ways. Advice giving. Most of us got into this field because we were good listeners and we pretty good at offering advice. So oftentimes it's a letdown for people to hear that what we do is not about giving advice. In fact, giving advice can be very harmful. Giving advice really robs people of opportunities to grow as people. So it's one thing to give advice to family and friends because we certainly don't want to be doing therapy with them, as tempting as it might be. Um, but advice giving, we want to leave that to the gossip columnists or the advice columnists, I should say, and really resist that urge. And it's much easier said than done because oftentimes people will come to therapy with things where we want to say, just do this, just get in the elevator, just stop fighting, just agree more. And really that those simplistic advice is has a way of being very disrespectful to clients. More often than not, people have given themselves good advice. They've gotten good advice from family and friends. And so when we sort of jump at that opportunity to give advice, we end up doing more of the same. And we tend to get stuck in the same sort of patterns that clients are stuck in. So, as tempting as it might be, I want to refrain you from doing that. If you absolutely feel the urge to, there are ways to check out what advice people have tried or have gotten. And so they can tell you the advice that their uncle told them that you were about to tell them, and you can kind of see, okay, they've gotten that advice already. So there's really so many other ways that we can be valuable to people and holding giving advice and really allowing solutions and answers to emerge because we our expertise is in asking questions and asking really good questions. When it comes to communication, most couples come to therapy with the presenting problem of we just don't communicate. To say that a couple has a communication problem is really not saying much of anything at all. It's really like saying I have a problem and my problem is my problem. And that's why I'm in therapy because I have a problem. And I have a problem and that's why I'm here. The communication problem really says nothing. Our expertise again lies in saying, so tell me about your communication problem. We want to assume that every couple does their own unique version of communication problem. So we may start out with the frame of communication problem, but through our questioning, we want to see that problem definition evolve to something very different. Learn about a couple's particular brand of communication. Well, what do you mean by communication problem? When does that occur? What exactly happens when you're having a communication problem? What issues are you talking about when you have a communication problem? What are some areas where you communicate perfectly? So as we ask questions like that, we begin to tease apart empty statements like our problem is communication. So again, clients will come in with that talk, but you never want to frame a problem as they have a communication problem because that's pretty much the same logic and thinking that brought them into therapy. Many of you in the second discussion question said it was challenging to find a couple that was an inspiration, and I can relate to that. More often than we hear about couples that are in distress. But if you look hard enough, you can usually find some people that are an inspiration. Those 80-year-old couples that are walking down the street holding hands, smiling like they were just got together last week, but they've been together for 40 or 50 years. They didn't get there without some tough times. And, a brink, we're fond of saying it's not if, but when you hit a wall or when you get to the brink. And it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a very necessary thing for a relationship to evolve, for there to be crisis. And crisis in a relationship are nothing more than opportunities to deepen your connection, deepen the love you have for a partner. And I think as a field in our culture in getting that across. If a relationship is in trouble, people feel like they're failing. And oftentimes, unfortunately, I think professionals perpetuate this idea that a relationship in crisis is about two people who are messed up. A couple things to keep in mind. APA is important. It's a great skill. Once you learn it, you pretty much can do it consistently. Make sure you are using references in the body of your posting as well as having a reference list. And all those little periods, commas, and signs have to be in line. And remember that you should have at least 2 peer responses per unit question. So for every unit question, you should be responding to at least 2 of your colleagues, at least 2. So, okay, well, that is the summary for this week. I'd appreciate it if after you read this, you just respond that you viewed the video and maybe point out a sentence or two of something that I said that sparked some interest or sparked something in you that was interesting, or maybe that sparked another question that you may have. Great.